there is an ethnic hierarchy in Britain. Now, I am very confident in saying that white Brits are at the very bottom. And I'm also very confident in telling you about who is at the top. And that is why I am so silenced. In the cases that politicians ignore, you can be safe in betting that the victim class is less important to them than the victim class at Golders Green. Every single response, major response that was given after Golders Green, and compare those responses to the responses post Southport, but also to the responses after the Nottingham spree killing carried out by Valdo Calacane, and to the response to the Manchester Arena bombing in 2017. Now, the reason I bring this up is because the chief rabbi, post the Golders Green stabbings, came out and said, words of condemnation are no longer enough. Now, I'm going to ask the audience today what they think the response would have been to me, Mark Collett, if I had gone on my social media, on Rumble, on Odyssey, on Telegram, and come out with a fiery speech saying, post Southport, post the murder of these 3 innocent little girls by a man of Rwandan descent, words of condemnation are no longer enough. Well, I think I'd have been arrested for incitement, because I think they would have said, look, what you're saying is this can't be dealt with politically. It can't be dealt with via dialogue, via speech, via some form of reasonable agreement. You're inciting violence. And it does shine a light on this 2-tier justice system, where when something happens to the indigenous people, it is dealt with in a completely different way to when something happens to an ethnic minority group. And in this particular case, in Golders Green, it happened to... And I want to make this really clear before I say anything else. I don't think anyone needs stabbing in Britain. I don't want to see anyone getting stabbed, going about their daily life. I don't want to see white people stabbed. I don't want to see Muslims stabbed. I don't want to see black people stabbed. I don't want to see Jews stabbed. But there's over 52,000 incidents involving knives in Britain. So 52,000 crimes involving bladed articles in Britain. Why was this one particular crime so much worse than the other 51,999? Why did this one particular crime lead to Kemi Badenoch scuttling to Golders Green as fast as her little legs would carry her? Why did Keir Starmer go there and make a speech? Why were MPs, quickly booking Ubers, taxis, and train fares to get to Golders Green when they're not talking about other crimes? I'll tell you this now. The Conservative Party leader at the time never went to Southport. Rishi Sunak never went to Southport. He released a written statement. I don't think Kemi Badenoch went to Southport. Now, you might say, well, she wasn't the leader of the Conservatives at the time, but she never went, did she? Keir Starmer turned up the day after and, laid some flowers, but he didn't convene a Cobra meeting. Now, he convened a Cobra meeting within hours of the Golders Green incident. And you're saying to yourself, if you sat there, well, look, Mark, you're talking about, again, whites and the disparity in the way that white victims are treated and the disparity in the way that the politicians and the media treat Jewish victims and white victims. But hey, let's talk about blacks. Now, the Golders Green stabbing happened on Wednesday of last week. On the Saturday, there was a drive-by shooting in Brixton where four people were gunned down in broad daylight. I only saw one news story about that. I didn't see Keir Starmer or Kemi Badenoch scuttling to Brixton as fast as their little legs would carry them. I didn't see the BBC running 3 days of non-stop special coverage pinned to the front page. But 4 people lay in hospital, one of them in a serious condition, after a shooting in broad daylight where 4 people were injured, twice as many as were injured in Golders Green. So this lets you know there is an ethnic hierarchy in Britain. Now, I am very confident in saying that white Brits are at the very bottom. And I'm also very confident in telling you about who is at the top. And that is why I am so silenced. But the incidents I have just spoken of tell you that there is a bias. Now, if I was a prime minister, if I was the prime minister, and I heard about a stabbing of 2 people, I would be upset. But if later that week I heard that 4 people were gunned down in a drive-by shooting, I would say that was a more serious offence, because a gun crime is a more serious offence than a knife crime, and for double the number of people to be injured and for one of them to be critically injured is worse. So why weren't politicians lining up to talk about that? Because in the cases that politicians ignore, you can be safe in betting that the victim class is less important to them than the victim class at Golders Green. And that's why post Golders Green, there will be more laws passed, more money set aside for that particular community, and more people voicing opposition to dangerous speech and weeping tears, because the people stabbed at Golders Green are more important to the politicians than to the media, than the black people shot in Brixton or the white girls stabbed in Southport. And something else I'll tell you. How long did it take? And I'll give you the answer, but have a think, because you might know this. How long did it take for a genuine, up-to-date picture of Axel Ruder Cabana to be featured in the press? Took nearly 6 months.
Wow.
The pictures of Essa Suleiman, the man who stabbed 2 in Golders Green, they were up on the BBC website in all their glory within 24 hours of the incident taking place. And they were accompanied with police body cam footage of the attack, CCTV footage of the attack, and numerous images and videos from passers-by, and they were appealing for more footage. Now, to this date, I have never seen a newspaper show one single image or video of the Southport attack. Why is that? Why do we get to see so much information about Golders Green but nothing about Southport? Was 2 reasons. Firstly, Southport was so bad, so horrific, so terrifying. Some of the victims were stabbed dozens and dozens of times. It was like a bloodbath. The attack was so frenzied that anyone involved in criminology would say that it was as if Axel Ruder Cabana had some emotional or sexual attachment to what he was doing. And I think if people saw those images, the state would say they would be radicalized. So it goes down the memory hole. But the Golders Green images and videos have to be shown because you have to feel sorry about that. You have to weep tears for that. But when you weep tears over Southport, why would you do that? Are you some kind of extremist? Are you suggesting that white people should have some form of in-group preference and feel sorry when people who look like them, little girls who could be their daughters or sisters, are stabbed? Why should you feel sorry for that? Oh, stabbed. We must all weep together. And if you think I'm engaging in hyperbole yet again, I'm not. And I'm going to read you a headline from The Guardian. Golders Green MP decries lack of vocal solidarity from Liberal left for the Jewish community. So when you cry over Southport, politicians will be like, what are you doing this for? I mean, yes, it's tragic, but Don't look back in anger. I mean, they sang Don't Look Back in Anger after the Manchester Arena bombing. We weren't allowed to be angry over that. We weren't allowed to show solidarity for the white community over that. But when you're not crying enough over what happened in Golders Green, Sarah Sackman MP takes to the press to say, why aren't we crying enough over this? What? So when white people are killed, when black people are killed, we don't cry in the same way that we're told to cry when Jews are stabbed. And that tells you that this particular incident is being propagandized for political reasons because they want to pass new laws, which they are doing, that are going to take away the rights of everyone to freedom of speech. And you've got to also remember, Essa Suleiman and Axel Rudolph are two very similar people. Both of them are of African descent. Suleiman came here as a child. He was born in Somalia. He was given British citizenship. Ruda Kabana, his parents came here from Rwanda, and he was born on British soil and again has British citizenship. But neither of them are ethnically English, Scottish, or Welsh. They're not indigenous. They are clearly people who have a claim to being a citizen of another land. They're not like us in really any way. The similarities between the attackers are very, very obvious, but the disparity in the way the two cases were dealt with are also very, very obvious. And I've got to say this, no politician in the wake of either of these two cases has come out and said, we need to stop people like that coming here. The response, which really is only in the case of Golders Green, because that's the only one of the two cases where there has been any meaningful response, the response was quite clear. Don't stop them coming here. Just pass new laws that will silence everyone that lives in Britain, including indigenous Brits. So that's really the definition of anarcho-tyranny, isn't it? You know, the government passes policies that bring about a state of criminal anarchy, and then the solution to that anarchy is tyrannical new laws that ultimately affects the law-abiding majority that weren't involved in those crimes in any way, and it affects the law-abiding majority by silencing them, and interestingly, silencing them from speaking about issues to do with ethnicity, race, religion, etc., because that's what it's going to be. And if people doubt what I'm saying, please, please don't, because this morning on the BBC website, and I'm going to quote directly, hate crime prosecutions to be fast-tracked after anti-Semitic attacks. So that's going to be the other new change, that all these new laws that they're passing will be laws that will be fast-tracked, and the prosecutions will be fast-tracked to make sure that's what's really dealt with. So as we get replaced as white people, we will now have fewer rights to speak out against that replacement, because that's what these hate crime laws will cover as well. And if we do speak out, we will be fast-tracked through the criminal courts ahead of murderers, rapists, and other real criminals.
Yeah. And I mean, like, if we were to have this conversation even 2 years ago, people really wouldn't know what you're talking about. Right. It's amazing how much the narrative has shifted so much that now we can actually fully entertain these conversations and understand, like, oh, this is real. The hierarchy you spoke about, this is real. It's becoming clear as day. And even if you were to think about it logically, like, let's forget about England. You'd think if there's just a random country, whoever had the biggest proportion of population, the biggest demographic, that would get the most attention, right? You're pleasing the crowd. Jewish people make up 0.5% of our demographics. So it doesn't make any sense from that stance. And even if you thought about, well, in an Islamic country, who are they going to prioritize? Obviously Islam. In Israel, who are they going to prioritize? Obviously their people. That only makes logical sense, right? You should prioritize the people who have built that country, who are the majority, who have literally built the culture which everyone gets to enjoy. But for us, it's completely the opposite, right? So it's like, okay, maybe there's a problem. And actually, I have a really good video I wanted to show, just to show kind of, I mean, everyone's kind of waking up to this influence. but this one really, really sold it for me.
If you ever were in doubt about what the British establishment means or is or represents, have a look at this. See, my question is, why is this stabbing getting back-to-back, floor-to-floor, wall-to-wall coverage on all media outlets when there's stabbings every day in London? Every single day there's stabbings. Why is it when the Jewish community is supposedly under attack that it gets wall-to-wall, floor-to-floor coverage? And why is this now being leveraged by the establishment?
Literally sums it up to a T. Hello guys. If you found value in that clip, could you please like, share, and subscribe? On top of that, if you haven't already, could you please follow the Spotify and could you please follow the Rumble? What I'll do, I'll leave links to everything in the description below. Due to the nature of what I talk about, I'm not sure how long this channel will last, but in the meantime, I'll keep having these chats. On top of that, if you enjoyed that clip, make sure you click right here to watch the full episode. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time. All the best.